here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I guess, Nick, maybe he feels so offended about them rigging the election at this point, especially with the latest rules that they have. He's saying, fuck this shit. And now he's calling out Joe Biden's cognitive decline, which I've never, he's always been trying to be nice to him. And I like Joe Biden and all this other great stuff. But in this clip, it's not so much as great stuff. And he brings up his age, and he needs to prove his cognitive ability. So let's listen to Robert F. K. Jr.
The Democratic Party has been my home for my whole life. The Democratic Party has been a home to my family since we came over in 1848 during the potato famine.
Right. Probably the most iconic Democratic family of all. So you're a Democrat. You're running for the Democratic nomination. One thing almost every Democrat agrees on is that Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump, even if Joe Biden isn't perfect, and that Donald Trump, most Democrats think, is a threat to democracy. Do you agree with that?
We've got to stop governing by fear, using fear as a governing tool, and we've got to stop running on fear. That if everybody doesn't stay in line,
right,
that this boogeyman is going to take over our country. We can't.
This point, how he's talking about Donald Trump right here, it does two things. One, people like Sam Cedar, Majority Report, TYT, see, he's a conservative. That they're gonna use this kind of to say that. The other thing is, this is another reason why they despise him. So it's the COVID stuff, but the fact that you're not going to talk about Donald Trump in the same way that we talk about Trump is a problem, especially in a Democratic primary. Imagine him being a lot more coherent. You got Joe Biden over there babbling about Trump is crazy, babbling, and then you got RFK saying, like, we don't need this. Come on, guys. Look, you get what I'm saying? It's just a dynamic that they don't want to have, and they will never allow in this Democratic primary. But let's get back to the video and finish off and get comment.
We have to have democracy in our country. We have to have a lot of people running and a lot of people talking to each other and debating and have unscripted interactions.
Right.
I'm worried about that our country is going to be governed not by somebody who is fully has the mental fluidity and the acuity and the dexterity that is required to govern this country, and that the country instead will be governed by a bunch of faceless technocrats with lanyards.
He's saying, now he's still nicing it up for Biden, but he's saying we're going to be governed not by this guy who's clearly has cognitive decline, but by some nameless, faceless bureaucrats. That's what he's saying right here. I'm very curious to the Biden camp reaction to RFK bringing this point up. But let's continue.
Will be governed by a bunch of faceless technocrats with lanyards who nobody's ever heard of, who are making decisions about whether or not to bring us to nuclear Armageddon. And we're very, very close to that right now. And I want, a president up there who can make those decisions and who's going to understand everything, the entire landscape. And I think President Biden needs to show us all that he has that capacity. There are so many doubts. So many Americans have doubts about that. And I think 70% have questions about his mental acuity. And, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other, but what I would say is he needs to come out of the White House and answer that question. He needs to have town halls and unscripted interactions.
Exactly.
And
he's not going to have any of those, Nick. He's not going to have any unscripted. They know what's wrong with this guy. They go like this. They making a calculation. Is it better to put him up there and everybody see how much of a fool he are and possibly lose credibility in this whole system because they're going to see how we were propping up this guy who shouldn't even be here? We can do that, or we can just shut it down, be called anti-democratic, but we still safeguard the idea that this guy is not running the country. Go ahead, Nikki.
That's what they did last time, CJ. That's the calculation they make. They know that they're gonna get hit by hiding Biden, right? But the calculation is the hit they take by having Biden hide from the public is less than the hit they would take if Biden continually make an ass of himself, right? That's literally the campaign strategy they ran last time. Then they rely on media propaganda and free media advertisement to win the election. So that's what they're trying again. That's why people who apologize for Joe Biden are so foolish, and RFK brings it up in such a great way. Because if Biden is actually prepared and he actually fit to be president, and you guys want to take on this age question, wouldn't you guys be like, all right, we're going to do a weekly town hall, we're going to do more press conferences so you guys can see that Biden is more fit? The fact that they are not doing that, CJ, despite so much concern, despite all these polls, shows that they made that calculation again, despite how much criticism he's getting for his age. They like, we prefer that than the alternative. Then you guys see this guy. That's how bad it is. It's crazy, but let's continue.
That's it. We prefer this nonsense. like they're telling us, Nick, believe us. This is better. Him falling down the steps. Believe us. This is better. Him thinking that he was ground zero 9/11s. Believe us. This is better than what we know what will happen. But let's let RFK finish out here.
No, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other. But what I would say is he needs to come out of the White House and answer that question. He needs to have town halls and unscripted interactions. And you shouldn't be able to run for president. And the only Americans you're talking to are your donors.
So, but if the final choice is Trump versus Biden, right now you're undecided?
If it's Trump I don't have a plan B. I intend to win this election. And I'm not going to talk about
one. That's a lie.
That's unserious.
I want you guys to understand something. For one, that's a lie. Secondly, it's really fucked up, and it's a very shady media tactic that they do, where they force people who are running against Joe Biden to answer whether they're going to support him or not. So they do this every single time. Not only just RFK, there's Marianne, everybody. They say, will you support Joe Biden if you're not me? That's a propaganda technique, guys. They are immediately kneecapping their campaign to their face. It's supposed to be a power move. So RFK, we know he's full of shit. We know he's lying. But what does that say about the media that they constantly putting this out there? Instead of asking about the real substance of his campaign, they constantly focus on, oh, we heard Biden, we heard that. It's such a gross tactic. But like Zoya said earlier, I put Zoya's comment up here earlier. I want you guys to understand, in order to run in a DNC primary, the only way they will even allow you to run if you sign a DNC loyalty pledge, right? And we don't know if RFK is willing to be the first person willing to be sued. But we know that to be the case because they reviewed that last election. That's what many Bernie insiders said. They said, yo, Bernie was forced to sign a loyalty pledge. That's why Tosi endorsed Joe Biden. Right. At that point, she was literally already at the Fox transition, right? She was already done pretending she's a Democrat, but she still endorsed Joe Biden because that's how strong that fucking contract is. The contract is so strong, Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Joe Biden. Bam. So, until proven otherwise, unless this motherfucker wants to get sued, unless there's evidence and data that contract doesn't exist anymore, I'm going to assume that RFK is going to endorse Joe Biden or he's going to get sued. We see what happened. If he refuses to endorse Biden, that'd be impressive because he'd be the first one that ever challenged that pledge. But I don't believe it.
I would always wonder, what would actually happen?
Dude, apparently it's real, man. Apparently, it's a real threat. They forced Tulsi to yield, and this is around the time when she was extremely critical of them. I wouldn't say she made a full Fox transition yet because she didn't appear on Fox, but it was definitely heavily suggested that she's about to take that route. She still endorsed them because the contract is that damn powerful. So we see if RFK make history, the first person ever. We will see what happens if you actually don't do it. My guess, and this is one possibility I'm just now considering, because you guys know how the DNC is not going to have primary debates. RFK was complaining about how they're going to take all of New Hampshire's delegates and give it to Biden. So the only way RFK may get out of this, CJ, is if they don't have a formal primary. You know what I mean? So if they have a formal primary, he'd be forced to sign the pledge. But they literally canceled the primary. So they're like, we're not even doing the pledge. we're just not gonna fucking do a primary. So that's maybe the only way that RFK gets out of endorsing Biden. But we see, we see what we say. But as of now, I think he's gonna endorse Biden because that's the trend. That's what we see. Democrats
and
do.
I think and they play this. They play this. Marianne Williamson do it too. They play this coy game. Well, I don't know because I'm not sure. When they know all along they've signed a loyalty pledge and they also do it because they know they'll turn off possible voters if we knew that you were going to endorse Joe Biden in the end. But go ahead.
And see, I'm gonna just read Zoya's comment. I pass back to you, but she said it's a legally binding contract to participate in Democrat Inc. process. And people got to remember they are a corporation, and they made an argument and they won the Supreme Court that they have the right to run the primary any way they want. That's how they're able to do that. So if it's a legally binding contract, that's why Tulsi endorsed. That's why all these people will endorse Biden, because God knows what the fuck DNC. Not only will they have the legal advantage over them, but then you have the professional advantage. Like, Nick, you're destroyed, right? But anyway, great comment by Zoya's Love. Zoya's Life.